Hello everyone and welcome back to day 20 of our F125 Hotlap and Setup series. Yesterday we are back, of course, here in Mexico City at the Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Of course, this place, actually a really odd one inside the F1 game. It's slowly kind of become more like real life. Each year it feels like you want to run slightly more downforce around this circuit than the last, and as seems to be the meta inside F125, that definitely carries through into this year's game. Of course, IRL, you've got to deal with a very high altitude, so of course you're running kind of Monaco level downforce and still getting Monza level straight line speed. Sadly, F125 doesn't simulate that, and boy oh boy, does this circuit need an upgrade inside the games. Of course, originally added back in 2015, the track is not accurate to real life. It never has been. Of course, I think they've always been a bit reluctant to recently, if Mexico was going to be dropped off the calendar, but it signed a new deal, so please, EA, get this place LiDAR scanned, because it would be the biggest transformation, I think, of any circuit inside the F1 games right now. But of course, if you're new to this series and you don't know what this is all about, we basically go through, I provide you guys with a race setup inside F125. I then also take you for a lap around the circuit, pointing out kind of where you want to be braking, what you want to be looking for, and everything like that. And then last but not least, I leave you with a hot lap. As always, timestamps will be linked down below. If you find this series useful, please do make sure you drop us a sub, get yourself a liking, obviously, the video as well, because it does really help us out as well. We're trying to hit 15k subs here on the channel at the moment. But yeah, without further ado then, let's head here, back out to Mexico. Well, starting a lap then here of the Mexico Grand Prix circuit. You want to try and make sure you get the car nice and tidy out of the final turn and get on the throttle as early as you can. The longest run in towards turn 1, I believe, of any circuit on the F1 calendar. Open up the DRS nice and early. That DRS zone has actually moved back this year, so be very, very careful. That keeps catching me out in all of my practice runs. But you're going to be all the way up in 8th gear on the long run down towards turn 1. Top speeds of about 205 miles an hour, maybe even 210 if you're in the DRS of the car in front. Get the outside wheels wedged over the curb. You want to brake at about that black lamppost, or I think it's actually a light, ready for turn 1. Bring the car all the way down into 3rd gear. Try to get over the first curb, but don't hit the sausage curb. Bring the car over to the right-hand side and then flick it through the second part. This is probably the only one of the three where you can try to attack the sausage curb a little bit more, because again, on this third one, I try to avoid it at all costs. Get on the throttle nice and early, get the car wedged over that exit curb as well, and then cycle back up through the gears. Open up the DRS once again as we make our way out onto the second of the back straights here. All the way up in 7th gear, you want to bring the car over to the right hand side, line it up with this curbing on the outside, especially when you don't lock up the rears like I've just done. But yeah, try and get the car nice and kind of lined up with that curb. And just as you can see as it moves out ever so slightly to the right hand side, that is going to be a braking reference right at the 100-meter board. Don't worry about trying to keep the car nice and wide on entry. You're going to go from 7th all the way down to 2nd gear. Again, avoid that sausage curb on the inside. Keep bringing the car over left before you rotate it through the right-hander. A little bit of throttle, nice and easy on the exit. Again, get the car over that outside curbing, up to 3rd gear, and then back down to 2nd once more as you try and nail these two apexes. On the exit, again, trying to get that throttle down as early as you can over the outside curb, and then we make our way in towards the S's. 6th gear in qualifying trim as you head into here. You don't even need to brake for this corner, it's just a really fast flick through. In race trim though, I would be going down 1 gear to try and rotate the car in, just give yourself that little bit of extra stability. And then these corners are really kind of actually quite difficult inside F125, obviously because of the new curb physics inside the game. Thread the car through the first and second completely flat out. These final two, again in race trim, you might need to lift out and downshift once, but in qualifying trim, again, they are completely flat out. Leave the car in 6th gear though, as we try to make our way through the exit there. Open up the DRS once again. This DRS zone, not really that important. I don't really ever see overtakes here as we make our way down in towards the final sector. Braking just at the 100-meter board as you wedge the car over the curbing once again. 4th gear on the entry. Again, try to avoid the sausage curb. Use all of the available exit curb, though, as you try and bring the car over to the right-hand side. Braking just before you hit that curb once again. 2nd gear through here. Try to attack the curb on the inside, and then be very, very careful. I like to short shift up to third, again attack the sausage curb, but it's so easy just to run wide and invalidate your lap time there on the exit of the corner. You can short shift up to fourth gear, back down to third though, ready for the final corner. Be really careful of some oversteer on the exit as well. Trying to get the throttle down off of this final turn is really awkward. I like to wedge the car over the curbing though if you're on a qualifying lap. And there we go. That is a lap here of Mexico City. It is one that obviously the first half of the lap really simple. The second half of the lap is a lot more complex, a lot more difficult to obviously try and get the car nailed exactly where you need it as well, and especially those final few corners through the Forest Sol. The back end is always trying to step out. It's what you find around here as well, is you'll steadily heat the tyres up on a lap, and then you have to use these two straights once again to try and bring the tyres back down into a good operating window. It is a one-stop race though here. It's a brutal one-stop. I actually find a two-stop can work, especially against the AI, but I would have thought in league racing you're going to likely be one-stopping. Anyway, let's head back to pit lane though, and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, taking a look then at our global leaderboard, as you can see, we're about 1.3 seconds away from some very good times around this circuit, inside the top 1,000 as well, so quite happy with the time we've done there, especially, you know, as I've said, this is a race setup, all these guys on qualifying stuff, so it is very different. We're probably compromising ourselves at least half a second a lap, if not ever so slightly more. 39-34 wing is what I'm running around this place. You can run ever so slightly higher if you're struggling through the corners, or ever so slightly lower. It's kind of what you guys like to run inside the game. If you find yourself often bringing the front wing or the wing angles down ever so slightly, bring them down by kind of 3 or 4. You can run as low as like 30-35 around this circuit. Or if you're still struggling through the S's, through the Forest Sol at the end of the lap, you can up this to like 40-38. You will be a little bit slower down the straights, so that is kind of, again, the compromise you have to make inside this game. 85-30 on the diff. Again, you want that throttle a little bit locked, obviously, through the S's of Sector 2. It does compromise you a bit through Sector 3, so you might want to run it down at 80 or even 75 if you're really struggling to get the car balanced, but that's just what's worked for me. 30 off throttle, fairly standard stuff inside this game. There's not too many corners where you're trying to brake and rotate at the same time, so it's not too much of an issue. Again, fairly standard toe and camber angles for me. Minus 3.4, minus 1.9, 0.03, and 0.13. Just, like I said, seems to be the meta. People are running absolute minimum, but I use this just to try and help the tyre wear a little bit more. 35.3 for your front and rear suspension. 8.19, though, for your anti-roll bars, so that kind of firm front, soft rear, and then vice versa on the anti-roll bars. You're actually running a very firm rear anti-roll bar though, where there are quite a lot of big traction zones, especially out of that final corner. You want the back of the car to be able to squat a little bit, but not too much that it is compromising you off the turn. 23.50 for the ride height. Again, this just gives you a little bit of extra top speed. You could run this as high as like 26.52 just to give yourself a bit more stability over the curbs, but that's what I found works for me around this venue as well. 54.98 for your brake pressure and bias. Again, a lot of them recently I've been running 55, but Mexico seems to work quite well on 54% for myself. And then last but not least, tyre PSIs. 24.2 fronts, 22.2 rears. Again, you are so compromised around this place. It's mainly rear limited, again, because of those traction zones and obviously throwing the car through the corners. You can run the PSI lower and obviously have a bit more grip, but you're much more likely to overheat the tyres, and that will probably force you into a two-stop. Meanwhile, on the other hand, if you're not using the curbs as much as I do, then you can afford to run this at like 23.2, and you should obviously therefore make the one-stop a little bit more safely. Also, you can up the front tyre pressures a little bit more, but this is just what I found worked for me. Again, you're not really front limited around this circuit, but hopefully this setup helps you out. If it does, please do make sure you drop us a sub like I said in the intro. Strategy, like I briefly mentioned, 36 laps for a 50% league race, 71 laps for a 100% event. Go mediums to about lap 16, and then hard tyres for the checkered flag. You can take the mediums kind of 14 or 15 laps if you're really struggling, and the hards still should make it. But yeah, hopefully, like I said, this helps you out. Drop a sub, and I'm going to leave you guys with a hot lap, because tomorrow we'll be back out in Brazil.